The California golden trout, or simply the golden trout, is a subspecies of the rainbow trout native to California. The golden trout is native to Golden Trout Creek, Volcano Creek, and the South Fork Kern River. The California golden trout is closely related to two other rainbow trout subspecies, the Little Kern golden trout, found in the Little Kern River basin, and the Kern River rainbow trout, found in the Kern River system. Together, these three trout form what is sometimes referred to as the golden trout complex. Taxonomy. Originally, the golden trout was described as a subspecies of the rainbow trout, with the name Salmomycus agua bonita, and it is still often considered a subspecies along with several other rainbow trout subspecies commonly known as red-band trout. Fishbase and the Catalogue of Fishes, however, now list O. agua bonita as an independent species rather than as subspecies of O. mycus. Likewise, Wallitus lists O. m. whitei and O. m. gilberti as subspecies of O. mycus. O. agua bonita instead is listed as a full species. Description: the golden trout has golden flanks with red, horizontal bands along the lateral lines on each side and about 10 dark, vertical, oval marks on each side. Dorsal, lateral and anal fins have white leading edges. In the native habitat, adults range from 6 to 12 inches long. Fish over 12 inches are considered large. Golden trout that have been transplanted to lakes have been recorded up to 11 pounds. The golden trout should be distinguished from the similarly named golden rainbow trout, also known as the palomino trout. The golden rainbow is a color variant of the rainbow trout. The golden trout is commonly found at elevations from 6,890 feet to 10,000 feet above sea level, and is native only to California's southern Sierra Nevada mountains. Outside of its native range in California, golden trout are more often found in cirques and creeks in wilderness areas around 10,500 minus 12,000 plus, often beyond 12,500 plus passes that are not passable without crampons, ice axes, and ropes until after the 4th of July. Preferred water temperature is 58 to 62 degrees Fahrenheit, but they can tolerate temperatures in degraded streams on the Kern Plateau as high as 70 degrees Fahrenheit so long as those waters cool during the night. The only other species of fish indigenous to the native range of California golden trout is the Sacramento sucker. Record catchers. The Wyoming Game and Amp Fish Department state record golden trout measured 28 in and weighed 11.25 pounds, caught in Cook Lake, Wyoming in 1948. The IGFA all-tackle length record for O.M. agua bonita measured 21 and caught in Golden Lake, Wyoming in 2012. Distribution: O.M. agua bonita is native to the southern Sierra Nevada, including the upper reach and tributaries of the South Fork of the Kern River, and Golden Trout Creek and its tributaries. It has been introduced in hundreds of lakes and streams outside the native range. Though most of these populations did not last, are hybridized with cutthroat trout and other subspecies of rainbow trout. Distribution data that may be incomplete or inaccurate includes the Canadian province of Alberta and the U.S. states of Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. History: in 1892, the California golden trout was originally described by David Starr Jordan, the first president of Stanford University, as Salmomycus agua bonita. The fish was named after the Agua Bonita waterfall where the first specimens were collected, at the mouth of Volcano Creek, at the creek's confluence with the Kern River. A century later they were listed as Oncorhynchus mycus agua bonita in Banks native trout of western North America. In 1904, Stuart Edward White communicated to his friend President Theodore Roosevelt that overfishing could lead to extinction of the golden trout. In White's novel The Mountains, he wrote about the threatened golden trout on California's Kern Plateau. Roosevelt shared White's concern and, through U.S. Fish Commissioner George M. Bowers, dispatched biologist Barton Warren Everman of the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries to study the situation. In 1906, Everman published The Golden Trout of the Southern High Sierras. Based on morphology, Everman accurately described 4 forms of this native fish: Salmo roosevelti from Golden Trout Creek, Salmo aguabonita from nearby South Fork of the Kern River, Salmo whitei from the Little Kern River, and Salmo gilberti, the Kern River rainbow. Genetic studies have since clarified 3 groups of trout native to the Kern River: California golden trout native to the South Fork Kern River and Golden Trout Creek, Little Kern River golden trout, and Kern River rainbow trout. Conservation. Years of overexploitation, mismanagement and competition with exotic species have brought golden trout to the brink of being designated as threatened. Introduced brook trout outcompete them for food. Introduced brown trout prey on them, and introduced rainbow trout hybridize with them, damaging the native gene pool through introgression. Populations have been in steady decline for decades. In 1978, the Golden Trout Wilderness was established within Inyo National Forest and Sequoia National Forest, protecting the upper watersheds of the Kern River and South Fork Kern River. In September 2004, the California Department of Fish and Game signed an agreement with federal agencies to work on restoring backcountry habitat, heavily damaged by overgrazing from cattle and sheep, as part of a comprehensive conservation strategy. The U.S. Endangered Species Act designated the subspecies O.M. whitei as LT, or listed threatened, since 1978, under the name Uncorynchus aguabonita whitei. NatReserve has designated the following NatReserve conservation status for the 3 subspecies: Oncorynchus micus aguabonita, G5T1, critically imperiled, last reviewed in 2013. The primary threat is hybridization and introgression with stocked rainbow trout. Other threats include competition with non-native brown trout and rainbow trout, predation by brown trout, habitat degradation from cattle grazing, and possibly expanding beaver populations in the native range. Genetic studies showed hybridization with stocked rainbow trout in almost all known wild populations analyzed as of 2003. Non-hybridized populations are restricted to less than 1% of the native range, and confinement to these areas for long periods create a significant risk of inbreeding depression, and loss of heterozygosity and genetic variance. Oncorynchus micus gilberti, G5T1Q, critically imperiled, with questionable taxonomy that may reduce conservation priority. Last reviewed in 2005. Few, if any, genetically pure populations still exist. Primary threats include continued introgression with introduced rainbow trout, habitat loss from grazing, logging and road building, unpredictable events such as floods, drought, and fire, and reduced habitat availability due to introduced beaver. Oncorynchus micus whitei, G5T2Q, imperiled, with questionable taxonomy that may reduce conservation priority. Last reviewed in 2005. Hybridization with introduced rainbow trout is considered a threat, and there is a constant threat from introductions of other salmonids by disgruntled anglers. The subspecies still occurs in the Little Kern River, above the falls on the lower river, though some populations show signs of introgression with coastal rainbow trout. The American Fisheries Society has designated all 3 subspecies as threatened since August 2008. Translocations outside of endemic range. For sport fishing, the California golden trout underwent many 20th-century translocations into multiple western states, and established populations survive in California, Idaho, Montana, Utah, Washington and Wyoming. Populations in the high-elevation lakes in the Ruby Mountains, Nevada, have died out. The current status in other states where the California golden trout were planted lacks documentation. Chuck Yeager and the New Mexico population. When Colonel Chuck Yeager introduced one of his commanding officers, General Irving Twigg, branched to the Sierra Nevada populations of golden trout. Branch ordered Yeager and Bud Anderson to introduce the species to the mountain streams of New Mexico. However, the New Mexico populations have also died out. In his second autobiography, Press On, Yeager details his annual fishing trips to catch golden trout, which he extols as one of the best game fish and best eating fish to be found.